Okay, so we'll start just about now. So hello everyone, and a very big and warm welcome to the AfOx AfriSoc Mentorship Webinar. We are delighted to have you join us, whether you are watching live now or you'll be watching the recording later. My name is Andriana Wogbadek. I'm a Weidenford Hoffman Scholar and a Sloan Robinson Foundation Scholar, and I'll be moderating our discussion today. I have with me 4 outstanding African scholars who will be sharing their Oxford journey to give us insights into how the Oxford application process goes. Our first speaker is Joyce Ngaha. Joyce is reading for the MSc in International Health and Tropical Medicine as an Oxford Mastercard AfOx scholar. She's from Cameroon. The second speaker is David Odiambo. David did the MBA as a Weidenford Hoffman scholar and a Julius Baer scholar, and David is from Kenya. We also have joining us Christiana Ufomba. Christiana is reading for the Masters in Law and Finance as a Mastercard AfOx scholar and a Lineker scholar. She's from Nigeria. And our final speaker is Liso Zenani. Liso did the BCL here at Oxford, and he's currently doing his DPhil in law. So the DPhil is basically Oxford's nomenclature for a PhD. So Liso is doing his DPhil in law as a Rhodes Scholar, and he's from Southern Africa. I am from the Gateway to Africa, Ghana. And as you can see, we have representatives from different African countries, and we would like to know where you are joining us from, so you can drop your country's name or flag in the chat as we go along. So before I hand over to the presenters today to take us through the Oxford application process, I'd like to do a brief introduction into what the AfOx AfriSoc Mentorship Program is, and I'll do that by sharing a short presentation. So the AfOx AfriSoc Mentorship Program is it's an initiative that is done as a collaboration between AfOx, which is the Africa Oxford Initiative, and AfriSoc, which is the Africa Society here in the University of Oxford. So the aim of the initiative is to support exceptional African scholars who are applying to Oxford to present very competitive applications that can get them in. So what does AfOx do? AfOx facilitates research collaborations between researchers in Africa and researchers here in the University of Oxford, and also works tirelessly to ensure that they increase the number of African students attending the University of Oxford. And then AfriSoc, which is the student body, is a vibrant community of African students. We provide academic, social, and welfare support to ensure that African students do not only get into Oxford, but they thrive whilst they are here. So basically, the purpose of this mentorship program is to ensure that we are supporting African scholars to prepare competitive applications to Oxford. The mentorship, we have one-on-one mentorship pairings, pairing mentees in Africa with Oxford students or alumni. They give them tailored guidance on their applications. We provide application material. We do these webinars, information sessions, and for a select few applicants, we give application fee waivers. Last year, we gave application fee waivers to 200 applicants, which is actually remarkable. So I'll just give a quick overview of what we'll be covering today before the speakers go ahead. So the purpose of this webinar is to demystify the application process to Oxford. People hear Oxford and some people automatically assume that it's too big for them. Meanwhile, they are actually exceptional students. So we want to demystify this process, make it as simple as possible for people to understand. We'll cover how to choose your course. What course are you choosing? What colleges are you choosing? What are the key application materials you need when applying to Oxford, and how can you prepare them adequately? We'll look at looking for funding and scholarships, and as well as the application timeline and practical tips. So why Oxford? Of course, this question is obvious. We are the #1 university in the world. Why not Oxford? Oxford we've been around for a long time, and we have perfected the game. Oxford, there are about 48 undergraduate courses here in Oxford and over 330 graduate courses. We have Masters in Arts, Masters in Science, the MBAs, MPhils, and the DPhil programs. Oxford is unique in the sense that we have a collegiate system. So every student is part of a college and their department. So we have about 48 colleges here in the university, and each college has their own crest. As you can see, the little crest around the main Oxford crest. And for students here in Oxford, it's a sense of pride to belong to their college, and people have these competitions between colleges. What does Oxford offer you? It offers a platform for global academic excellence, but not just that. There's a community, there's a sense of belonging, no matter which part of the world you are coming from. And we have very beautiful traditions, like the sapphires you can see the students wearing, which is very unique here, as well as we have other traditions like the formals where we dress up fancy for dinners. So it's not just about studying. There are avenues for people to relax and interact with the larger Oxford community. And AfriSoc, this is where AfriSoc and AfOx come in to ensure that African students applying to Oxford are thriving socially and academically. So let's start with the application process. How do you even begin? How do you even begin this whole application to Oxford? So I'll start with our speakers. Joyce will take us through how to select your course, how to consider what colleges to consider, and what key application components you have to take note of. So over to you, Joyce.
All right, I'm sure everyone can hear me, right? Hello, everyone. It's really nice to have you. Thank you, Adriana, for doing justice to our school. Yeah, we are the top best in the world, right? For the last 10 years. I love the emphasis. So I'll just run you through choosing what course might be right or fit for you. What college should be considered when you're trying to make your application, and what are your key application components to prioritize early. So I think I have about 5 minutes, right? Okay. So for choosing the right course for you, I think before you apply, you should have an idea of where you see yourself in the next, let's say, 1 year after graduating, like immediately after graduating, um, about 2 years after, and let's say 6 years after. So you shouldn't just come because, oh, it's Oxford, I want to apply to it. You should have an idea of where you see yourself progressing in terms of your career, so that you can have an idea of, okay, if I want to be here in like 5 years, what do I need? If I need to be here in 2 years, what do I need? And then based on that, you like come up with what program you want to do. Let's say personally for me, I was working, I had work experience. And then when I was working, I like figured out that there were challenges like international development, because that's what I was like interested in. And I was like, oh, how do I get to do capacity building? Now, when I was going through the courses at Oxford, there were two options that had like that were competing to catch my attention, right? But then that's where now goals come into place. When you look at the progression, I look at the scholars on, let's say, this program and this other program, where do they end up going to? Does it look like where I look forward to going to? And it started making like my choices easier, right? It was not just about coming to Oxford. It was like, okay, I'll come here and what next, right? Because it's going to be just 1 year, because you're applying for like a third master's, and then it's going to go by very fast. So you don't want to take a chance and come here and you feel like confused and all of that. So virtually, I made some notes too. I was like, if you're choosing a course, think beyond the title, right? Really look at the structure, the modules. Are you someone who enjoys self-directed learning, or you'd want to be in a course where they prioritize group work and you get to like develop interpersonal skills in the process? Think about research, think about the components of the course. How is it going to help you grow? What are things that you feel like at the point where you are in your life, it's like the right fit for where you're heading to, right? Ask yourself things like, does this course align with my long-term career goals, what I was saying, or my research interest, especially if you're looking forward to doing like a DPhil after your program. And then look at the faculty you might work with, the strengths of the department, even where the past graduates have gone to. Very important, guys. Go on the pages. You often have access to the alumni. Look at who the alumni are and where they are, and ask yourself, is that where I hope to like? Does that look like where I hope to be in a few years? And then when choosing the college, I would say, like Adriana like rightly said, the college is where your life will happen besides your department, like besides your program of course, right? That's where you're going to receive like pastoral care, pastoral advice, where you're going to build a community. If you're planning to like do like get involved in sports and everything, that's where all of that will happen. And I know the others not going to agree, but guys, I'm in the best college, so I'm using this opportunity to pitch my college. Come to Wolfson, but Wolfson is only for graduate, which is very good. You get to only hang out with people who are doing MSCs or PhD, right? So if you're looking forward to doing a PhD and all of that, please come to Wolfson. We are also the only college that has a minibus. Ask all of them. They have to either walk a long distance or bike or do all of that. So come to Wolfson. Yeah, that's it for it. So your college provides you with accommodation, with the dining, all the nice experience that Andrea was speaking about. It's all by the college. We have so like all your social life, everything that looks like social, the bars. If you're a Christian, the church societies. If you're a sports person, like sports courts. Most of their colleges don't have sports courts. We have that at Wolfson. So please come to Wolfson. Yeah, and then even if you don't have a strong preference, it's not a big deal. Don't try to hit yourself all about that, right? Even if you don't get to choose a college, the school is going to allocate one to you. But you might just want to, just indicate interest, right? Wilson is selective, but someone is saying they're coming to Wilson. You're welcome. Can't wait to see you and welcome you next year. And then for key application components, for this, I just made things easier. I have my Oxford application here with me. So I'm just going to run through like the main topics. So for the referees, you need 3 referees, right? 2 of them generally are academic and 1 is like professional. Professional could be anyone at the workplace where you are right now. And then academic could be lecturers like that you had. It has to be, I know sometimes people are very tempted to go and look for, I think, I think someone else is going to speak about referees, right, Andrina? Excellent. Yeah. So virtually, someone is going to tell you about that. So you will need 3 referees. You will need to indicate. You need to provide a personal statement. You have to upload it. You'd have to provide a CV, and then someone is going to tell you more about the CV structure because it's not like you're going to upload your CV. You need to have you need to talk about your professional qualifications and training courses, your employment experience, your research experience, publications or preprints. If you've done any presentation before, if you had any poster before, if you've done any performances before, if you've had prizes and awards, if you have any skills and interests. And then, you also have to declare if you know English. I think lots of you have contemplated taking the English language test, and I'm sure someone else will cover that. But that's virtually what you need, like your personal statement, your references, transcript, qualifications, professionally, and what you do outside of your classroom. And any other thing is virtually going to be discussed by the other like my other classmates or fellows or seniors. Thank you, and come to Wilson. Thank you.
Wow, someone is pitching Wolfen hard. This is not the opportunity, so I would not say that Keble is the best college. I'll leave that for another day. Uh, we'll move on to David, who will be taking us through how to write a compelling personal statement. What narrative are you given? How are you demonstrating your value and showing to the program that you align with the program and you are a good fit for it? We did get a lot of questions on this, so David will be taking us through this.
Thank you so much, Andriana, for this question. And I think most of the people who are here keen on, okay, how do I make that entry into Oxford and what is required of me? I would say, just as a build up to what Joyce has already mentioned, the key is you're making a choice on what course you're coming into, and therefore then you've already mapped that ecosystem and you know why you're coming into Oxford, which course you want to do. But then once you know what you're coming to do in Oxford, the question is, how do you make it to actually get into Oxford? And the key thing, that is what I'm going to guide you in terms of what does the application look like. In my case, I made my application for my MBA and I look at it in terms of all the other cases. The application requirements will almost always be the same. You will have to apply for the course that you're applying for. And where necessary, we'll talk about the funding as well, the different scholarships and all that. In your application essay, there's an academic component, number one. What makes it viable and that makes that course the ideal course that you're going to take. And therefore, when you're writing your personal essay, you want to link it and look at it from a point of where are you coming from in your career, in your professional practice, in your undergraduate education? Why did you even decide to make that choice in the course that you took? Then ultimately, how does that relate with the practical experience if you had any career experience in between? And also, how does it relate now to the next course that you're looking for so that at the end of the day, you can say, I would give a case example in my case. Initially, I'm trained as a pharmacist. I'm working as a pharmacist. I've been working in the regulatory and policy space and the commercial access to a greater extent within the African market. In addition to my professional practice in corporate setting, I've also had entrepreneurial ventures. So ultimately, the thing is, my entrepreneurship is within the social healthcare ecosystem. So I've trained as a pharmacist, gives me the technical backing and the technical expertise to be within the pharmaceutical and healthcare ecosystem. On the other end, through my professional experience, I'm keen on pivoting full-time into professional practice as an entrepreneur. I need business skills and business competencies to be able to do that because I have the technical, I have the business. There's no business without a technical and a business competency. That is already linking and actually tying the knot as to why that is the ideal course for you, the ideal qualification that you need to be able to get into that space. So you've already justified why that is the ideal and the best course. And then the best key thing that you could add to it is what are some of the modules? And I would tell you one of the key things that I've loved about Oxford is when you go to each of the different departments where your course program is domiciled, there will be information about the course overview. There will be emails and contacts of some of the professors in those respective courses. And therefore, when you've already reviewed the course material and you feel like these are some of the skills that you need to build on, you can reach out to some of the professors and researchers in those areas, which means they will tell you whether you will really get what you need to get or you will not get what you need. And therefore, then the question is, what are the key considerations you need to make? Ultimately, you are making a compelling, justified, and actually scientifically validated application because you know you are going to get it. You've had conversation with somebody in that ecosystem, and you know that. That will give you a compelling argument for why you are deserving for that application. But I would link it to the other aspects of the essay the essays will be linked to your personality. Why are you the best person to be accorded this opportunity? Especially when you link it from you're asking for scholarship and consideration on a scholarship side, but also asking for consideration because of the impact that you can have. One key thing that I've seen, and I remember last year I did so many reviews of applications. From an African setting, it is good to show the compellingness in terms of the need in your ecosystem, in your country, in the continent as much as it is. There is need, but we are investing in you. What makes it ideal that you are the best person to solve that problem? Talk about your potential. Talk about the possibilities that you profess in yourself that will say, there is a problem. I have the competencies and the ability to actually see where that problem is. And therefore, if I get these additional qualifications, I will be more suited to solve that problem in X, Y, Z option that I'm already thinking of at the moment. My approach was I was going to do with African Pharmaceutical Network. You can see on my background, that is the company that I'm running and the organization that I'm driving. How do I expect to do it? Can you link that narrative and make it make sense for you as you're practicing, as you're writing your essay, so that it is not just a matter of you saying, but you really doing what needs to be done in that context. And I think that is a good piece to look at. And then another key piece, I would say, beyond the essays at all, some of the courses will have additional tests. In our case, for the MBA, there's the GRE or the GMAT course that you need to do some tests. And it's about understanding what are the skill sets that you have, especially your aptitude, either it's analytical, it's mathematical, or it's language as well. In all of those different prioritization, there will always be a score that is expected. For the GRE, I think it's around 250 and above. Most people would target 300 and above. That would be the best. For the GMAT, you need a score of 600 and above. But take note, for those who are already doing those tests or those who've taken those tests, the score is an add-on to the strength of your application. Can you, beyond just the getting the scores, can you demonstrate that you know what you're going for? Case example, the best score is 600. My score was 590 for the GMAT score that I did. And the circumstances is that I was doing this in addition to my day job, in addition to entrepreneurship, and therefore the time to prepare for it was not sufficient, but I was clear on what do I want to do, and how does it align with what the university and what the college does, and how does it support the mission of the organization that I'm engaging with as well at that particular moment. And therefore, it is about you connecting the narrative and looking at it from a point of, if it was an ideal world, that somebody is not pitying me, somebody is not just giving me because they want to, but giving me because I am deserving. Can you connect the different dots and make it make sense? And I would say that is what you need to have in your mind when you're doing this. Over to you, Adriana. Unless there's anything that I missed.
No, thank you so much, David. You pretty much covered it all. As to the intent of your motivation letter is to, or your statement of purpose is for you to demonstrate that you are interested in the cause. You've identified that it is what you need to for your career moving forward, to demonstrate your own impact in the world. Especially if you want scholarship, you have to demonstrate that you've made some impact within your field, such that they can invest in you. So it's about basically linking your goals to what the course can offer you moving forward. So thanks so much, David. We'll be moving on to Christiana. Christiana will take us through how to build a strong academic CV, what the official transcripts are all about, and if you have any issues, how you can go around that. So over to you, Christiana.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So regarding building a strong academic CV, I'll start by saying that in building your CV, you've like being an undergrad or being where you are currently, you already started building it. You started building the profile that is required for that CV. So it's not the case that you're out of school and then you're trying to build your CV, because what forms the major part of your CV is what you are doing currently or what you have already done. So I would say that the first thing is you have to have the grades. In terms of your academic requirements, you have to have the grades. So I would expect that you're already working on that now, or you've already worked on that. In most programs in Oxford, for example, law programs, you would see that the requirement is that you have a first class or a very strong second class upper. Sometimes they give the scale. They can tell you have to have like let's say if it's over 5.0, maybe a 4.4 something would do, or a 4.3. So like your CGPA has to be very strong. For the BCL, for those applying to the BCL, if you do not have a first class, you don't stand a chance. So already you know that this is a requirement academically. So in terms of and beyond just your academics, of course, to make your CV very robust, I would say that you need to have your professional qualification. That is, if you have your work experience, it would be nice to have that outlined. You also have to have the extracurricular. It's very important. I mean, I know that some people do not emphasize that, but I mean, that's one thing I'm really grateful for, that I think I was able to squeeze out time to do extracurricular activities, very essential. And this could be in the form of occupying one leadership position within your school or your university, or taking part in activities that maybe are very impactful to the students community and even beyond. So I think extracurriculars are very important. So in terms of your structure, I would start by saying you need to have your academic your grades first. It has to be the first point of call in your CV. That should be the first section that one should be seeing when looking at your CV. I don't buy the idea of having your grades at the last part of your CV, because if it's a requirement that you have a first class for a course, it makes sense that you ordinarily should have that as the first thing there, so that before the person stresses in his or herself going through extracurricular, they see that you have the grades and then they can continue. Because most times when you check the requirements for a number of things, you see that you say, oh, does the person have the grades first and first? So that's the most important thing. And then you might have these grades, but then, like I said, structure is very crucial. So make sure that you have your CV structured in such a way that it's appealing to a reader. I remember my former life, so to say, when someone was talking about shortlisting persons for a position, and they were like, there's some CVs that are so stressful to look at. And then someone was like, no, the person had the first class. And I'm like, no, I don't want to look at it. If I've missed it, that means the CV was not worth looking at. So you really need to make your CV very appealing, very catchy. And when I say catchy, I'm not saying that you should lump it up with so many information, but you should try as much as possible to keep it robust as possible. Like in law would say that your answer should be like a mini skirt, to be short enough to cover your private parts and long enough to do the job. I don't know, but something around that line. But you should really make your CV very robust in terms of outline your academic achievements, put your extracurricular, then put some other things. When I was applying to Oxford, I think I had like a 3-page CV, and then someone was like, you're not ready. I'm like, I have 3, is that not enough? I say, cut it down. So I had to cut it down to 2 pages. So please try as much as possible to keep your CV very punchy and make sure that it has essential information. In terms of structure, academic achievement should come first. Then you should have awards and achievements. Then you should also have work experience where applicable. If you do not have, you put your extracurricular. And even if you have work experience, I beg you in the name of God, please try and keep your work experience short. Nobody wants to know that you built all the lands in one area or you advised on 30 transactions. You're not pitching for lawyers on this call. You're not pitching for a client. You're not trying to get a client to work in your firm, or you're not trying to get a client to make you their legal advisor. So I do not see the point of putting 30 transactions on your CV. Please leave it out. Try as much as possible to keep the essential ones that are very essential to the course you're applying to. If you're applying for maybe something in sustainability, or maybe you're trying to buttress the fact that you're done impactful things, then you put those deals that are impactful. If you're just put things that are impactful and keep out the 100 things you've done, and then you can put publications, academic publications. That would help strengthen your application. I think that's it for CV on my end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah. So is there anything I'm missing out?
If you could speak on the transcripts.
Okay, sure. Happy to do that. So in terms of transcripts, to be honest, I'll speak from my perspective and try to make it a bit general. My transcript is the transcript from my school, Abia State University, Nigeria, is very self-explanatory. If you look at it, you understand that this person had a first class. They put the metrics for which they graded. They made you have a first class. You had a first class, and they put maybe you have like this number of A's, or this was a total number of scores, and this was what was required for you to have a first class. So it's something that if you look at it, you're able to understand that this person why this person had the first class, or maybe the areas that the person did well and the person did not do well in. But then in some cases, like I've seen some transcripts where we don't have like this information explained. So I mean, I can't say that you will tell your school how to prepare transcript or how to make your transcript look like, so that this is now where you now play a role. Now, in terms of playing a role, I mean, in your CV, you should say you had this, maybe 4 point something over 5.0, or you had 6.7 over 7.0. And then if your lecturers are not very familiar with you, or they do not know you so well, maybe you were like a very introverted person, and you can just tell them, oh, sir, please, I would appreciate maybe you're putting a reference, please, could you help me? Can you put a line or two, maybe to speak to my academic achievement, maybe my grades in particular or something? You can just tell them to chip in that thing, maybe something along those lines. But basically, you're trying to strengthen your grades, maybe something that is not really explained very well on your transcripts, because some people might not have the patience to be looking at a stressful transcripts that, like I was looking at the transcript and I was really trying to find out the person's grade. I'm like, God, where is the grade? But then I just went to the person's CV and then like did some extra research to know much about this person and then know that, okay, indeed, this person had this grade. So like I said, do your best to say it in your CV. And that's why I say your CV is very important. Instead of writing 30 transactions or 30 things you did in one region, just write 4 point something over this one, top this one, that one. It helps like strengthen it. So I mean, I really like I said, transcript is something that is beyond, is not within your jurisdiction, within your remit to do much about. The best you can do is just to apply for it, and then they give you what you actually got. But I think your lecturers, if they're familiar with you, can help buttress the fact that you are an excellent student, and then in your own application document, you can also butchers that fact. The only piece of advice I'll give in terms of transcripts is for those of you that are from countries where they frustrate you to get documents, please try as much as possible to get your documents in time, to get your transcripts, like apply for it in good time and make sure you follow up. That's I would expect that you've already applied for your transcript at this stage, to be honest, because I know that some course deadlines are already around the corner. But if you're in a jurisdiction where they frustrate you so much, please try as much as possible to apply. So if there are any issues in the terms of how they reflected your grades, you can flag that in good time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christiana, for your points. If what I took from you is that we should tailor our CVs to the course you're applying to. An academic CV is not the same as a professional CV, and so you should tailor it. Ensure that you've requested for your official transcripts in time. And what I would add is that for people who did their degrees in a language that is different from English, you would have to accompany it with a translation, an English language translation, so that the reviewing committee understands what they are looking at. And at your end, you could also use the conversions in your CV, as you mentioned, so that people understand what they are looking at. Thanks so much. We would move on to Liso. Liso would, as Christina mentioned a bit about it, looking at references. Lisa will take us through how to present strong academic and professional references and what other requirements you might need, like the English language transcripts. Over to you, Lisa.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to see you all this afternoon, and thank you for having me. So yes, as Andriana said, I'll talk to you about strong academic and professional referees or references, as well as the English language requirements. And then I'll also talk to you about the writing sample. So, like as a brief background, as it has been mentioned before, the A to Z website of courses on the Oxford graduate page is very, very important for you to go through. It lists all the graduate courses that the University of Oxford offers. And then once you click into those, it then takes you into more in-depth detail about what each course entails. So there's different kinds of courses. Some courses are more academically orientated, and some courses have a level of a professional tinge to them. So you will also get that once you check in the A to Z resource of courses. So for example, on the BCL, which I did as my first degree when I came to Oxford, they were very clear that it's an academic degree, and so they relatively don't count your work experience as much as they count your grades. So at that point, it became a more important factor how you performed in undergrad, and so that will trickle into the kinds of references you want to have. So usually you have to provide about 3 references, and then they say that academic references are preferred. So if you can get 3 academic references, all the better. But if you can get 2 of them, at the minimum, you have to have at least 2 academic references, and then the one can be a professional one. Again, go back to the A to Z resource of courses and look at the specifications they have. This is just an example from the BCL. And then in terms of how you can then make those references the strongest possible, you want to primarily get a reference from a lecturer who knows you well. Some people can easily get tempted to try and find the most famous person from their department, or the most impressively well-known person that they can have access to. But then if that person doesn't know you very well, and if that person hasn't spent a lot of time teaching you and working with you, the quality of their reference might not be as strong. It might be generic, because they haven't had that closer working professional experience with you. So my advice would really to approach those kinds of academics that you have worked very closely with, those that you are sure can give you a very detailed, coherent account of your academic abilities, because the point of the references at this point, the academic ones anyway, is to give the selection committee a clear picture of one, your intellectual strengths and your potential and capacity to be able to cope with the intellectual pace that you're going to be coping with once you get into the course that you're applying for. So it might be helpful for them to note your class rank, because in a lot of instances, your class rank isn't necessarily listed on your certificate or on your transcript. So if you're ranked relatively high in the class, that might be something that your professors can comment on, because it helps the selection committee to know how you performed relative to your peers. So that's another very important thing that you could flag. And then for professional references, if you can't supply 3 academic references, you have to talk to someone that you've worked with in a professional setting. It obviously must not be someone that is a family member or a close personal friend. It has to be someone that you have interacted with professionally, who can then comment on your capacity to, on your professionalism, on your work ethic. And so the idea here is to give the selection committee some level of assurance of your capacity to survive and thrive in the academic pressure that you'll be faced with. And then on the English language requirements, again, go to the A to Z resource of courses, and the specific courses will tell you what the requirements are. So they will tell you what the minimum scores you need to have attained on your IEL TS scores. And so you want to do that in advance as well, to be able to get the test taken and then to have the results uploaded by the time the deadline arrives, depending on the deadline for your particular course. And then exemptions are usually, again, if you go to the A to Z resource of courses, when you click on the application portal, you will be able to, there's usually something that pulls up, which basically assesses your eligibility. So it lists the kinds of countries which don't need to have an English test, and those will usually be the English-speaking countries. But even those are usually the English-speaking Western countries, where English is like the predominant or the only language spoken. So countries like Australia, Canada, and all that. But for a lot of African countries where you've got multiple official languages, they might want you to have an IELTS. But the major exemption here is if your degree was completed entirely in English. And so you have to get your university to write you a short letter that confirms that your degree was completed in English. And again, it also depends on how recent your degree was completed as well. So you have to go and check the specifications in the website. So for example, if you completed a degree in the previous year and it was completed completely in English, then you can get a university to give you an exemption letter that explains that. But if your degree wasn't completed predominantly in English, you might then need to take the tests. Or if your degree was completed in English, but it was 3-5 years ago when you graduated, then you need to have a different kind of exemption. I can't think at the top of my head what that could look like. So that's that. And then the last point I want to make is on writing samples where applicable. So a lot of programs will require you to submit as part of your application a written piece. And the point of this is to assess your capacity to reason and write by Oxford standards and your capacity to make a single sustained argument. All of this is to try and see that you've got the potential to survive and thrive once you get onto the program. Because I think what they don't want, one, the programs are very competitive. So they do want to select the most competitive candidates. But secondly, what they don't want is to set people up for failure and take people into the course when the people don't have the capacity to survive in the course. So to provide your best written work is one way that they can see that, okay, you would be able to at least be teachable, or, you know, if not already fully baked, and none of us come here fully baked. So they want that potential, that you've got the capacity to adapt relatively quickly. You've got the capacity to be able to adapt the skill set that you already have into the kind of environments that you'll be facing. So that's the purpose of the written work. It's important that it's the best work that you have. It can be something you would have written in undergrad. You can submit something that has been marked or that has not been marked. You can write a new piece completely for the application process that you, if you think you don't have anything that is good enough that you want to put forward. And it should predominantly be your own work. Sometimes there is co-authorships for published pieces. You'd have to flag if there has been co-authorship and which sections have not been predominantly written by you. But first prize is to submit something that you alone worked on. And then again, the length differs depending on the academic program. For the BCL, I remember we had to cap it at 2,000 words, excluding footnotes. So that's what they wanted, and you had to keep it within that range. So again, to summarize, the whole point of your referees, the English language requirements and the writing sample is simply to filter the application for those kinds of individuals who will be able to relatively cope well in the programs once they've been admitted.
Thank you so much, Liso. We can tell that you've been around in Oxford for a while, the OGs here in Oxford. Thanks so much. Now we'll move on to one of the major issues, which is scholarships and funding. No funding, no education. So whether you're self-funding, you are looking for scholarships. So we'll start with Christiana. Christiana will tell us an overview of how to find internal and external funding sources here in Oxford and outside. And then we'll move on to the rest of our panel who will talk on their personal experiences based on the scholarship they are on and interviews they were called for. So we start with Christiana, and then afterwards David would follow.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. So in terms of scholarship, I mean, this is very important, like Andrea rightly said, very important. So the first thing I will emphasize is research. Please do your research. I mean, a lot of people just start application process without doing their research. And when the whole thing starts rolling out, they now start saying, oh, I didn't know about this, I didn't know. You find some people here in Oxford and they tell you about, oh, I didn't know that there was this funding opportunity. So I'll say do your research. If you're applying to Oxford, you would see there's a part in the website that says A to Z of funding. So take your time and look at that. I know it's a very long list, but just try and look at that long list, like A to Z. Check if you are eligible for anyone. I know that when I was applying, what I did was that I went to that page and then I looked at every funding there and then outlined the one that I was eligible to apply for. So that helped me to like streamline it as opposed to thinking that I'm eligible for every funding available. There are funding opportunities that are available for people in some countries or some region or particular courses. Some courses have more funding than others. So you just have to like check and see the ones that you are eligible for and then you streamline it. And it will surprise you to know that there are some scholarship opportunities that you're eligible for that would even, the timeline would even pass now while you're applying and you won't even know because you didn't go through that list. So try as much as possible to go through that list and then check. You would see different opportunities that are available. And some funding opportunities might not be listed there. There might be something that might just spring up, or you might find them on the faculty's website. maybe you're applying to a program in maybe sciences or maybe law, you go to the faculty's website and you see some opportunities that are available at this time. So like Anjana rightly said, like the opportunities are divided into two. You see internal and then of course they're external. Some external fundings deadline has passed, like Chevening, I think, and Commonwealth. So those ones are like external opportunities, and I mean a number of them has the timelines are still running now. So I would say that you look out for them because they might have like some separate requirements that might not be outlined on Oxford page. Then for the internal one, please check your faculty. If you're applying to a program in law, there are so many funding opportunities that you find on the law faculties and websites. I know I was speaking to someone last year that had difficulties with getting funding, and when the person was like, oh, I didn't know about this, I didn't know about this. So please, like I said, research is everything you need in terms of this funding. Like I suppose because it's when you know that you're able to reach out to people that have gotten this funding to say, oh, I know that you got this. Please, can you guide me on how I can go about putting my application or go about prepping for my interview? That's very like that's very essential. I think that's a very crucial thing for me to tell people because something I keep telling my friends, and they'll be like, every day you're talking about research. I say research is very important. I know you say you might not have the time because you're probably working. At the time I applied, I was juggling work and application. But what I would do is in my spare time while having lunch, I just scrolling through Oxford websites. I'm sure that if they check the number of times I checked that website, they might just come to my house and beat me up and be like, why are you checking our website every time? So I keep checking. So please do your research, very important. And then when you do your research, reach out to people that have gotten these funding opportunities. Some of them might not be from your country or your region. And to be honest, a lot of people can be more approachable than you think. Go on LinkedIn and say, oh, hey, I'm this one. And please don't go to people's DM and say hello and then you rest. Because to be honest, if you chat me and tell me hello, I will just be okay, we'll say hello. Then what happens? And it might just die as hello. So when you say hello to people, say hello, hi, my name is this one, I'm doing this and that, and I want to apply for this. I'll be grateful if you could help me. I know some of you might be like, oh, we need to that be so forward and all of that. But that's the reason why you're in the person's DM in the first place. Just be very polite about it and say, oh, this is what I'm applying for. Could you be of help? I want to get this funding opportunity. I saw that you got this. Just go straight. Because if you come to my DM and hello, tomorrow say hello, next tomorrow we'll say hello, hello, and then your deadline will pass. So please let's just try and say, oh, I'm doing this, and then you get what you need. It's very crucial. I mean, and it doesn't make you a user. Let's go with that feeling. It doesn't make you a user. You're looking for something, and the only way to find it is by asking. They say he who asks question will never lose his way. So ask the question, and you get what you need. So when you get that guidance, please try as much as possible to apply it. And I'll tell you that for funding opportunities, like I said, your CV is what you're doing now. Your profile is what you're doing now. So don't think that they say they need a scholarship that's for people that have academic excellence or very extraordinary, whatever. And you look at your profile, you don't have that thing. That's the starting point. So you have to look at your profile, tailor it the way to meet that scholarship. And another thing I want to emphasize before I wrap up is, please, when you're applying for grad school, applying to Oxford, don't just apply with the aim of, oh, I want to get admitted. I think that's the mistake a lot of people make. I want to get admitted and I also want to come, because you can get admitted and you not come because you don't have funding. So tell yourself, I want to get admitted. So when you're putting together that CV, make sure that the CV is also speaking, this person will get this funding, not that admission. Some of you have admission CV, but you don't have funding CV. You might have, you have this, you have that. Like some scholarships they need leaders. You don't have any leadership experience, or some of you will use transactions or one work or the other to fill your CV. Then your leadership, when you keep it in your pocket and say no, there's no space for leadership. Then if Hoffman want leaders, they will not take you because you're not a leader. There's nothing that shows you're a leader. You can say, or maybe somewhere casually, where I led, but you have not buttressed that leadership. So your CV should speak that you need funding. So to get that internal fund, your CV should be showing that you really need that funding beyond even searching and applying. So that's where I'll stop. That's where I'll stop, because if I keep talking, I'm not sure I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christiana. For Oxford applications, we have certain scholarships that you would apply to, but they are internal Oxford scholarships that you don't have to apply to separately. So you have to take note of that. For those ones that you don't have to apply to separately, it means that the application you submitted to your department is what they use to judge if you are competent for the scholarship. So as you are writing your application, imagine if scholarship assessors are looking at it, what could they also be potentially looking out for? So I'll move on to David. David will take us through his experience with the Weidenfeld-Hoffmann scholarship program, filling the application form, how he was able to express his fit as a global leader. I was fortunate enough to be on the same scholarship program with David as Weidenfeld-Hoffmann's scholars.
Thank you. Thank you. I would say I like what Christian has just mentioned, because at the end of the day, when you're applying for your studies here, you need the funding to make it work. And therefore, then the question you need to ask yourself is, how do you get that funding? And I would say, number one, just as has been mentioned, there are so many funding opportunities and possibilities within Oxford. The question is, do you know where they exist? Do you know they exist in the first place? That is number one. If you don't know, please ask and get the guidance that you need to get. And most importantly, when you're doing your application, I remember for the different portals and different conversations that I've had, there is a provision where when you're applying for the program only, they will ask whether you need funding to take that course. Mark that box, because then it gives the university an opportunity to consider you for the alternative funding that might be available for you, even if you didn't know it existed at that particular moment, because you fit that criteria. Number two, for the different scholarships that are available, there are those that are programmatic in their own essence in terms of looking at particular demographic, the things that are looking at different kind of social impact work, climate change related programming and all that, or even gender related, mostly for women and all that, or different geographical regions. Look at all those for the courses that you're applying for and ensure that you apply for them. In my case, when I look at it from the Julius Baer Foundation, Weidenfeld-Hoffmann Trust and Leadership Program, the question is, when you are applying and you're writing your CV, what do you have that will demonstrate your leadership capabilities and ability to influence and lead others towards a positive outcome? Because you need to realize when you apply for such kind of scholarships, the differentiator is that you are not only applying for the master's, you're applying for your master's, but also for another leadership program. That leadership program has a thesis of outcome and impact they hope to achieve in the world. Do you demonstrate those qualities and attributes that they're aspiring for? And if you do, how do you demonstrate it in your application so that they would be able to say, okay, this is somebody with nascent leadership capabilities and qualities that we want to nurture. And if we nurture it from point A today, once they're done in the 1 year, they will be able to apply that knowledge and that skill in a different context, in a different way. Therefore, investing in you is not just giving the money, but it is getting an ambassador, an ally who will champion for change, who will drive the mission that we're looking at. So the Weidenfeld Leadership Program looks at it in terms of ethical, sound leadership that is grounded on moral philosophy. We all would want to say what is right and what's wrong. The question is, sometimes what was wrong and what was right 10, 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago is now not right, because things change depending on the context within which they apply. I would give a case example, for example, racism or slavery. We knew slavery was acceptable during the slave trade, but now it's not acceptable. So how would the context within which you're operating change? Can you demonstrate such kind of an understanding? And the essence of it is leadership is about you when you're talking about your leadership journey, and you will be lucky to get into interviews. And the first question that might come to you is, how have you demonstrated leadership? Some of the times we want to talk about the achievements that we've done and all the things that we've done. It is amazing and fantastic, and it's easy to do that. But leadership is also being able to say, there's a point that I approached this in this particular context, it didn't work. And therefore, from that failure, I learned X, Y, and Z, and that re-engineered my approach. You're somebody who can change with the context, and therefore you are adaptable. That is an adaptability trait that will come in. So you need to ask yourself, what scholarships are available? What would make me the ideal? And being an ideal is, are you in tune with the values, the aspirations, and the thesis of that particular scholarship? And how does it make you work? In my case, I would say the leadership program, because I've been in leadership from, I'd say, from as early as 2009 or thereabout. I've been always in leadership in one way or the other, within the professional setting, within the community setting and all that. But I keep reimagining and reiterating my path. And then ultimately, then the link with the Julius Baer Foundation is, The Julius Baer Foundation is a wealth management bank in Switzerland, and they have a social impact with a commitment of supporting social development in Africa and mostly emerging countries. And in that context, their main approach and their main understanding is that as a wealth management fund, they have to look at the key drivers of growth in economies, and that is business. So the question is, who is committed to addressing social challenges in the ecosystem where they're operating, and who needs that funding to get the business knowledge to help come back and drive the economic growth and prosperity in the different ecosystem where they're working. So when you're reading, you already know, okay, they're talking about this. Is it aligned in any way with what I'm doing? Can I make my case? And ultimately it will work. That would be a key piece, and I would leave it at that. But I'll be adding one last thing. When you apply, you know why you're doing the program, why you want to come in, and you will apply for the funding as it is. It is not guaranteed that you will get funding in the first attempt. Don't lose hope. And most importantly, communicate your situation and your circumstances at the point of making that application. The reason as to why I say that is I joined Oxford on September 2024, finished September 2025. My application for the MBA was in 2022 with the intention of joining in 2023. That didn't work out. Is it because I didn't get the admission? No, I got the admission, but the funding situation, I got a partial scholarship. I wasn't able to raise the extra funding that was needed. So in my conversation with the MBA programs team, I made it clear to them that yes, I would want to get it, but unfortunately I didn't get the full scholarship that I needed to be able to take up that master's. Unfortunately, at the point when I was applying, the WHT scholarship had passed, the AfOx scholarship had also passed. So it was late. That is why I was not considered for those. I was only considered for the one that was still open at that time. But through that conversation, what was the provision that was accorded to me? They waived my requirement to reapply for the program in the subsequent year. The only thing they told me is log in the following year, and when you are logging in, apply for the scholarships only as addition to your previous application. Ultimately, the level of effort that is needed and the mental capacity that is required for that additional application is not as much, and that strain is reduced. But now I know what I'm working towards, and therefore that helps you. So don't give up hope if you don't get it the first time. Just know you know why you're doing it, and that is why the reason, the why behind what you're doing is important, is critical in how you go about it. That's it.
Thank you so much, David, for letting us know that you don't always get it right the first time, but communicate with the department, communicate with the colleges, let them know, ask them how they can help you. There might be information you couldn't find on the website. I would now give it to Liso. Liso will talk about the Rhodes Scholarship. Rhodes is one of the longest, the scholarships that have been around for a very, very long time. You talk about the criteria and how one can make themselves competitive for Rhodes.
Okay, hello again. Yes, so as Andriana has said, the advantage of the Rhodes Scholarship is that it's been in Oxford for over 120 years now, and they've built a lot of relationships with the different departments. So there's a lot of help that you can get, both in your application process and a lot of pastoral care and assistance that you get once you are in Oxford. So just very briefly about how the Rhodes Scholarship works before then I tell you about the criteria and the interview process. So unlike most other Oxford scholarships, which only consider you once you've received an offer from the university already, with the Rhodes Scholarship, you first apply for the scholarship, and then once you've gotten that, they then help you apply for your place in your program, which means if you wanted to study at Oxford in 2026 September on the Rhodes Scholarship, you would have had to have been awarded the scholarship already by this point, or in the awarding process within the next week or two. So what they usually do is they usually open applications around June, the beginning of June every year. And the applications usually close around the end of July every year. And so they then do interview processes for the different regions between August and November. Usually by mid-November, they're done with selections for that whole given year. So there's about 105 Rhodes Scholars elected every year, and they all come from different constituencies around the world. if you go again, I'm a great advocate of going into websites and doing that research that Christiana has talked about. Just go into the Rhodes website, and you can then look at, there's a section where you can check for your own eligibility. You can then place the country you're from, and then it tells you what region you're eligible for. So there's a certain number of scholarships available for specific regions. So there will be, say, 32 from the US, or there will be, again, it's an arbitrary allocation. There will be 10 from South Africa. There will be 2 from Kenya. There will be is it 1 or I think 2 from East Africa, maybe 2 from West Africa as well. I understand they're currently trying to raise funds to endow a Central African scholarship, but they will tell us when that's done. So so you apply through the region that you're from, and then you will be considered by the application panels, the selection panels of the region that you're applying through. And then once you put your application in, usually by the end of July, you then get invited to an interview once they've done the initial screenings. Sometimes you might have a series of interviews, or you could have one interview that then awards you the scholarship. So in my case, I'm from South Africa, and I applied through the South Africa at Large region, but that meant that I had to go through the Eastern Cape Free State region and then be shortlisted from that and then sent to the national region, and then only the national region was then able to award scholarship. I believe that was a similar story with Sajel as well, who I understand went up through Western Cape. So that's the general structure. So then once you are awarded the scholarship, which is usually by early November, applications have already opened for the following year. So what you then do is you then put in your application to Oxford as everyone else puts in the application to Oxford. But the benefit is that you already have funding sorted. You don't have to worry about that. And you will notice on the application portal as well, when you open your application, it asks you 3 questions. Are you funded? Are you looking for funding? Or are you a Rhodes Scholar? And then when you click you're looking for funding, that means that the university then considers you for its internal scholarships. When you say you are funded, it means the university will not consider you for its internal scholarships. And then the third option is you can then click you are a Rhodes Scholar, and then you do your application into your program as a Rhodes Scholar, which means that essentially once you finish your application and click submit, it's not directly sent to the department. It's first sent to Rhodes House, which then looks at it and approves it, and then Rhodes House then releases it to the department. So it's a nice way for them to check if you've really put in everything you had to put, you've considered everything you've had to consider, or there's things that were outstanding. And then at that point, they then send the applications through to the university. So that's the benefit of it. And then, of course, there's more benefits once you get to the university, which is you get access to Rhodes House, you get access to Mary Eaton, who's everybody's fairy godmother. And then you have access to the systems that they have access to. So then what's the criteria that they look for? Sorry, am I running out of time?
Yes. So yeah, you're running out of time.
Sorry,
but a quick one on the criteria.
Yeah, so the criteria they use is essentially literary and scholastic attainments. That's basically academic excellence. So you need to show that you're intellectually curious, and the evidence for that is your transcript and your academic referees. Then there's one that they call energy to use your talents to the full, as demonstrated by mastery in areas such as sports, music, debating, dance, theater, and artistic pursuits. So your extramural activities are important. Then there's one that they call truth, courage, devotion to duty, sympathy for and protection of the weak, kindliness, unselfishness, and fellowship. So that's your community service. And then the last one is moral force of character and instinct to lead. and you have to have a level of leadership ability that you can demonstrate in your CV. And throughout the application process, you can ask me in the Q&A about the interview preparation process, but throughout the application process, it's those 4 criteria that are the guiding light for the application, and that's what they will keep referring to try and see if you meet those, and that's the basis on which they will then award you the scholarship.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Liso. We'll give it to Joyce. Joyce will talk about a small overview of her experience with AfOx, and she'll talk about the funding opportunities for applicants who come from refugee or displaced status.
All right. I'm trying to remember all the questions that were asked. I'm trying to remember. There are lots of questions about AfOx. Yeah, I'm sure I answered some of the things in the chat box. So for those who are asking about application waiver, if you have history of forced displacement, emphasis on forced displacement, don't go and lie because you'll be caught, right? So if you've not been forcefully displaced, either by war, conflict, or disaster, don't go and declare that. But then for those of you who are coming from like backgrounds with displacement, like myself, then you can mention that at the beginning of your application. There is a spot where they're going to ask you. Once you answer that question, you don't need a waiver. It's going to be automatically waived for you, right? But keep in mind that you'll be asked at some point to explain what you mean by displacement. Because you can say this now, and some people just decide to go and say, oh, well, I was displaced. No, I said forcefully displaced, right? You can Google what forceful displacement means, but then they also have provisions. They also explain within the application what does that mean. But that's the only like form of waiving that I know. Even for AfOx, AfOx does not waive your application fee. I applied to AfOx, they don't waive. It was only waived because I had history of displacement, right? That's for it. I think I've answered that. Then for AfOx, AfOx is also fully funded, and I think Adriana gave like a brief overview of what AfOx does, right? They're trying to like increase representation of Africans at Oxford. So already, if you're an African, you're eligible. And if you feel like you require funding, you are also eligible for the scholarship. But then now it's not enough to be an African and to require funding, right? Let's say, for example, a program like myself, that's the question that I just virtually want to ask. I want all of you to ask yourselves. Let's say my program in our currency is about 40 million francs CFA, right? So ask yourself before applying or requesting for funding, why would anyone or why would yourself as a person want to invest 40 million just in your tuition fee? That question, when you're able to answer it, I'm sure you are going to be able to ask yourself if you're going to be a good fit for the scholarship or no, because you get to understand the value and you get to understand that it's not just about you willing. Like people will not just wake up one morning, go to work, raise funds, raise about 40 million and want to send you to school, right? There should really be something that's special about you that wants to push them. And for AfOx virtually, it's really about how you're willing to like contribute to development in Africa. They are very interested about how your course of study or how your chosen program of study is going to help contribute to development of Africa or no, like the Vision 2063 of the African Union, for example, right? And then even in that, it's not just about what you want to do in the future for Africa. What have you done so far? If you have graduated, in what ways have you worked to contribute to the development of the African continent? You see, I keep emphasizing on Africa. And then after graduating, do you hope to do anything or work in any way that's going to contribute to the lives, livelihoods of people living in Africa? You don't need to be in Africa to achieve that. You can achieve that from outside of Africa, but yeah, your application should be really Afrocentric. And in terms of the application, you don't require to make any separate application. There, when you're going to mention funding, I think like either David or Christiana mentioned, when you indicate an interest for funding and you indicate at the beginning of the application that you are African, that section will show up when you proceed to the fees and funding section of your Oxford application. So you don't need to apply to anything separately. If you're an African and you mention that, it's going to automatically appear. And then you can mention that, yes, I'm interested. You can say, yes, I'm interested in the MasterCard Foundation at AfOx Scholarship. And I think they might ask you a few questions. questions, and then that's it, right? You don't need to upload any personal statement, any essay, nothing, right? Based on whatever you said in your application, if you said something that aligns with their selection criteria or the values that they are trying to promote, then you'll be shortlisted for an interview. And it's at the interview that now you get to talk about all the rest. But we're not going to cover that now. Let's allow all the speakers to go through, and then I'll keep on answering questions in the chat box. That was it
Okay.
for AfOx.
Okay, Joyce, since you already started on AfOx, you introduced the interview. Could you kindly just take us through a brief 1-minute overview of what the AfOx interview looks like? And then our next speaker will talk about the interviews at the level of the departments. Thank you.
All right. So for I think I kept mentioning that AfOx and AfriSoc, the AfOx AfriSoc is a mentorship. You should keep that in mind. But AfriSoc does not offer the scholarship. AfOx offers the scholarships. Now for the interview virtually, you're just going to confirm whatever you said in your application about you confirming you're an African, you confirming, for example, you said you want to study, let's say, international health and tropical medicine. What are you concretely planning to do in the next 2 years for the continent, or the next 5 years? What do you see yourself doing? And how does what you think you're going to do is going to contribute, to improving the lives of people? You should think about numbers. You should think about impact. You should be able to say, okay, in the last 2 years, I've been doing this. I saw someone talking about WASH programs, right? In the last year, I've worked with, let's say, 1,000 or 10,000 people, implemented projects in this part. And based on that, I realized, oh, well, I could build capacity at Oxford. But then I do not have maybe the resources right now to be able to afford that. So AfOx is really not need-based. I have to be very specific about this. Don't come and say, oh, I cannot pay school fee. It's not a criteria enough for you to get the scholarship. It's not need-based. It's very merit-based and very criteria-based. So go on their website, figure out what the criteria are, and tailor your application to that. And then it's like a conversation. There is no specific, this is what you're going to hear at the application, right? When you say something, that might trigger other conversations. And then based on what you say and what you've said in the application, you're going to be getting your own tailored. But virtually, you would clearly be asked how what you're going to do is going to contribute to the development of the African continent. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joyce. I'll hand it over to Christiana. Christiana will give a brief overview of how the course interviews take place, and how to prepare yourself, present yourself, and effectively communicate your impact.
Okay, thank you. So to be fair, I didn't have to do an interview to get into my program, but I'll just give you a rundown of what it's like based on what I've gathered from friends who have listened to their program. But I mean, if anyone on this chat on the list of speakers have anything to say in addition to what I say, please, I would like that you chime in so that it would be a holistic a full response. So first thing I would say is when you go into the interview room, just like most interviews, own your documents. Don't just go there and then they ask you about something in your documents. You have a very good CV, very impressive. I've written something that is very impressive, and then people are really eager to meet you, and then they ask you one thing in your CV, or can you speak to this, and you're just rambling, you can't really speak to it. So I think the sense of the most important thing you're trying to gather from that interview is to know that, to understand that you know what you're coming to do, to understand that you know this program where you can speak to this thing, this concern that you're coming to do a research on, or whatever it is you're coming to study. So it's just get an understanding of it. And then I want to also say that you should not go with the perspective that you have to get 100 over 100. You might not be able to answer all the questions. And I'm saying this because sometimes some people ask you a question not because they have a robust answer on that thing. They want to get your own perspective. They want you to share in that perspective. So what you might think that, oh my God, I don't know the answer. They want to get your thoughts process. So you should be able to like speak to something, say, okay, this is my line of action. This is what I think. This is what my thoughts are. So they want to hear your thoughts process on a particular issue. They want to just know that, okay, this is what you think around this subject. Not that they want you to be like a professor in that area. I mean, that is why you're coming to that school. You're coming to learn, but they want to know your thinking process before you come to learn. Because when you come to Oxford, you have tutorials, you have interactions in class where you go through all this drilling. So it'll be nice to know that you at least you have something up there to be able to contribute. It's not that you come and do a tutorial and they ask you to do an essay and then you're just rambling here and there. At least you have a fair idea of what you're doing. So I would say, like I said, work on your documents, make sure that you know your documents, and also check that you, like I said, engage in the ideas you've presented. Like bring those things in your documents to life. So as opposed to them looking at your documents, oh, okay, worked in a hospital, this and that, like say something. There's a friend of mine that whenever we do prep for interviews, like if he wants to do an interview and he's currently doing his PhD, I'm very, very interested, even when we are doing the dry run, because he makes you think that you lived that thing with him. So try to bring those things on your CV to life. Interviews for me is just a way of bringing your CV to life. Your CV speaking, your personal statements in action. If you're saying, oh, you went through this experience, you probably had this experience or the other that affected you, or you were poor, like, or something happened. I mean, I'm not saying you should use poverty line. I think that has been quite overflowed, but I'm just saying that when you're saying you went through something, maybe something that is sad, and you're smiling, you're opening your teeth, you're like, I think you should probably be in that mood. I'm not saying you should go and act drama there, or some people go and cry. Don't want to cry, because it might still not give you. Sure. So just get in that thing. And then I think that you should also try as much as possible to ensure that you speak to your written work, maybe your area of research or something, because I mean most courses need you to put together a written work. Don't want to ask someone to write your written work for you. When it comes to interview, they now ask you questions, you're now rambling. Make sure that you write your written work. Every area they come from, you're able to speak to that. Or why do you have this argument? In my written work, I had things that some people might say, or some people previously had said in that area that, oh, they don't agree with this line of argument. That's my line of arguments. We'll fight it out. So argue it. So be able to speak to that thing. Tell them why you have this perspective of an issue. So I think essentially proper preparation. Don't undermine the interview. Don't underrate it at all. Try and go prepared. Make sure you're speaking to your materials. I know some people might say, oh, I'm not someone that knows how to speak very well. But I think that even if you're not as vocal as some other people that you feel like, oh, they're interview pro, try to understand what you're doing. I think having an understanding and being prepared gives you maybe a bit of an edge over someone that might just be very bold or saying what is not really making sense. You can calmly make your point and still drive it home. So I think that's very essential. So I mean that's it for me. Please, David, Joyce, anyone that wants to like add anything, please feel free. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Christiana. So in my experience with interviews, they just want to get to know you beyond the CV you presented, beyond the statement of purpose you wrote. So they are not asking you to repeat the same thing. So it's just questions to see how you think around just regular theories, just regular things in the world. So it's okay to be nervous, but you engage with them as if they are human beings. If you don't understand a question, you can ask them to repeat themselves, but just create a very Oxford interviews, in my experience, have been very calm. They are quite respectful. They are actually listening to hear what you are saying and not necessarily in a judgmental way. So yeah, it's just, but be prepared, but don't go with a script. You are trying to read off a script. You have your answers preset. You just have an idea of what your impact is and what you want to talk about, but be ready to change based on the questions they're asking you. So we'll move on to Lee. So I know that some people are intimidated by the application portal. Lisa will take us through how to navigate the application portal from beginning till when you submit.
Yeah, just a confession that I wasn't quite sure what people had, the specific concerns people had with the application portal, but I'll just go through the general pointers on it. So obviously the beginning is the A to Z course resource. That's where you get most of, well, that's where you get all the Oxford courses that they offer. So you go into the A to Z course list of graduate courses, and then you obviously would have thought about the kind of course that you want to apply for specifically. And so once you get to that, you then click the course that you wanted to apply for. And then once you are on that page, it's going to give you all the details that are applicable to the specific course. So it's going to give you an overview of the course. It's going to give you a course description. An example that I can raise is the BCL, for example, which is what I did and what I predominantly applied for. So you will get, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen or anything, but if you went to the website, you'll find everything I'm talking about. So it'll show you the section of what the course is about, and then it will show you what the course components are. So the course components bit, it tells you what options it offers, what you're going to learn, and what the structure of the course will look like. And then it will tell you what the entry requirements are. And then, which is the degree predominantly an academic one, or is it an academic and professional one, and does it require strictly a first class undergraduate degree with honors, or does it accept strong upper second class programs? To what extent does it evaluate work experience in its assessment of your application? And then it will tell you what the funding and cost implications of the program will be. And then it will tell you about the college preference, and then there will be a section on how to apply. The how to apply section is very important because it shows you the kinds of documents that you will need to upload. It shows you whether you can be eligible for any fee waivers. It shows you whether you will need to contact anyone specifically before you apply. So if you're applying for a doctorate, for example, or one of the MPhil programs, it might be helpful to have approached a potential supervisor ahead of time to kind of get them on board and to consider whether or not there's someone in the faculty you want to apply to who's doing the kind of work that you're interested in. It'll show you what references you need. It'll show you the kind of transcripts they will want from you. It'll show you what kind of CV they'll want from you. It'll show you the requirements for a personal statement, and it'll show you whether or not you need a written piece. And then over and above that, it also shows you key facts about what the program is about. It shows you whether it's full-time, part-time, how long it is, and most importantly, it shows you how many places they have available to the program and how many applicants they've had on average over the past couple of years. So you get a sense of how competitive the programs are. And then once you've done that, you can also get into the application guide, which will also be as a link in the course description, which basically is a more expansive explanation of what starting your application looks like, how you put in your details, the exact nature of the references and the referee guidance documents, qualifications, potential funding, supporting documentation you need, the fees and application fees that you'll need to pay. So that's a very important resource that that helps you to go through step by step. So you go to A to Z, and then you pick your specific course. You look at what the website describes, and then you go into the application guide. Once you've done that, also be on the lookout for the deadlines. And I think it's always important that you start these things way in advance of the deadline. So in the health sciences, I understand that the deadlines are in early December, but in most other programs, they're likely to be in mid to late January. So it's always helpful to at least open the website and open the application in advance, even if it will take you a long time to complete, because that shows you what you need and gives you enough time to be able to figure out to figure out the application process. Once you've done that, you click apply, and you'll be taken to a page that allows you to create a username, and which will likely be your email address and your password. And then once you've created an account, you then just follow the prompts. It's going to ask you about the funding things, and then you just upload your details. But everything that they will ask you in the application form, they would have explained in the application guide section. So that's how you can best navigate that process. If I've left anything else that's pertinent, you can just ask me during the Q&A.
Thanks so much, Lisa. David would now come in with the question of imposter syndrome. How does a young scholar in Africa, in any country in Africa, overcome the thought that they are not good enough just because they are African? So David will come in with this.
I don't know why that question is coming to me. I don't know if, Andrea, you think I have imposter syndrome.
You are a good salesman, so I think you can pitch this best to them.
It's okay, no worries. So I would say one of the key things that I would look at it in this context, when you think of Oxford, you hear of Oxford, it is so detached and so distant from where you are. In one way, true, in one way, not true, because at the end of the day, it's just human beings who are trying to pursue excellence in one way or the other. It's a different platform. So the question that you need to be clear about, and I would say this most of the times, and it's not, this applies for you when you are applying, number one, for you when you are already admitted, and for you when you are doing the course, and even after that program in its essence. Because you will realize that some of the courses that you're going to study in Oxford are the same courses that are being offered in your university college in your local neighborhood. The difference is the environment, the faculty, the country, and all the different expertise that are there. But substance, core, fundamental scientific principles would be the same. So look at it from where am I coming from? What am I passionate about? And what do you want to do? And make that application, putting your best foot forward. When you get into that ecosystem, 100% you will feel you are not good enough for it. But I would say you meet what it has for you, and you have the ability to actually get into those places. Because the reality of the situation is, unless you apply, there's nobody who is ever going to know whether you really meet the qualifications or not. And once you are into that program, having that foundation of why did you get into it is going to be a key piece that will keep you through the journey. There's a risk that you wanted to come in and you're clear on the purpose and the end goal. But because of imposter syndrome, you think, oh, Joyce is far much better than you, more qualified and more destined to be here than I am. And then you start looking around and comparing yourself with every other person's doing, or trying to move from your course to their purpose, to their agenda. Ultimately, you fail to harness the value of why you are there, and therefore it will not have supported you. And I would say be grounded on why you are going into Oxford. It is the university, it is the best university in the world as the moment in number one, which means you're getting into the best people with the best capabilities. So ask yourself, do you deserve it? Do you want to be part of the best? And I remember when I was having a conversation with my mom when I did the application, the question she asked is, yes, you will feel the imposter syndrome. But the question was, do you want to be among the best, or do you want to be among others? And the question is clear. So when you feel you are not good enough, make it be your aspirational. I want to be among the best. And therefore, then you have the confidence boost and you give it your best, knowing that you're not competing with every other ordinary person. You're doing it because you think you deserve to be there, and you give it your all. That's what I would say. Yeah. And you stay grounded on what you wanted to do. Don't be swayed around.
Thanks so much for that powerful word. Preach, 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 David, preach. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll now move to the Q&A section. We'll look at some of the questions you sent in before the webinar and the questions in the chat box. If you have any questions, kindly put them in the chat box. Looking at time, it wouldn't be possible to let individuals speak, so we'll just read out the questions in the chat section. So I read out a selection of the ones we already received, and then we'll move on to the ones in the current chat box. So we've already covered most of the questions. Questions around how do I make my application stand out? How do I make a compelling application? I believe we've answered that. What do I need to prepare before starting my application? We've touched on that. Someone asked if there are only two areas to focus on most, which should they be? How would who wants to take that? If there are only two areas to focus on, which should they be? I would say that you shouldn't concentrate on just any two areas. Your application they don't look at only one aspect. They look at your statement, your CVs, your references, everything counts, your interview, your writing samples, everything counts. So as much as possible, you make sure that everything you are submitting and each aspect of your application, you are giving your best as possible, as much as possible. Someone asked is it possible to rank application documents in terms of importance? I think it's the same question, essentially. Every part of the application is very important. Someone wants to know, what are the chances of being accepted with a 2+2? I think that's about an upper class, a second class upper, with several years of relevant experience. Who wants to take this? Lisa, could you kindly take this? The chances of being accepted if you have a second class upper with relevant years of working experience.
Sure. I think a 2-2 is a low second class, and then a 2-1 is the upper second, unless I'm mistaken. But I mean, with any of these things, it's always about, you never know until you completely, apply. So if you're feeling in doubt, I mean, fair, there's the application fee which you want to consider whether you want to spend on. Some people might want to only apply and pay that fee only if they have strong prospects of almost guaranteed success, and others might just want to take the cost and try and see where it goes. But I think in terms of prospects, it's always worthwhile to just try and see what happens. But again, it depends on the course and the competitiveness of the course. So, for example, there are certain courses that list again on the HZ that they only accept people who've received first class undergraduate degrees. And then there are others that say they're prepared to take people with first class or strong upper second. But then, of course, even if you do meet the minimum requirements, even if you do have a first class or you have a strong upper second, there's always the fact that there's a lot of other people also applying who have met those requirements. And so it's a question of where you can, how you can make your application more competitive. And for some programs, work experience might make your application more competitive because it shows that, you have applied these principles in industry, not just learnt them in theory. But again, if their program is completely academic, then your work experience is neither here nor there. So I guess the quick answer to that is that it's always difficult, it's always competitive. And obviously, the further you are from a first, the harder it becomes. But I think it's still worthwhile going for it.
Okay. I would add to what Lisa just said by saying that you can always reach out to the department as well. You send them an email and ask, are their academic requirements is it non-negotiable? And then with you yourself, depends on the course as well, as you rightfully said. If you are applying to a research-based course, and your undergraduate degree you didn't do as well, but now outside of school, you've had a lot of research work out there, you've done a lot of first author publications, they could make an argument for you because there's real world impact. They've seen that you are actually doing the work. So it depends on the course, but always reach out to the department. They are almost every department, they are willing to answer your emails very fast. We'll move on to the next question. Someone is asking if does an early submission give any advantage, and when is the best time to submit? Who wants to take this one?
With respect to that, I think normally Oxford has 3 phases of application. So the phase 1 is the best because at phase 1, all the scholarships are open. You have all the possibilities in terms of getting funding. If you meet some, you'll always get something. Phase 2 is the second best because some of the very competitive ones are gone, but you still have a majority of scholarships that are still open. Phase 3 is trying your luck, and that is normally early the following year. So for example, now in November, we're already in the phase 2 part of it. Phase 3 will start from January, and in January, you are just trying your luck, and it's preferable if you have your funding. If you don't, you can apply to get admitted into the course, then you will reconsider getting funding in the subsequent year. So for funding, phase 1 is the best.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's actually the experience of the MBA. For most of the medical science courses, they have most of the course deadlines are quite strict. And even if they would not tell you, if the course deadline is not too close, sometimes the deadline for being considered for scholarship, it comes before the course deadline. So you have to take all that into consideration if you want funding. I would move this question to Joyce. Someone is asking, should I base my SOP on my personal story, or should I strictly follow the prompt the department gave me? I know that with your department, they give you certain prompts. Last year, they gave you certain prompts for the essays. So what should you say to this person?
All right, I would say just go with the prompt, but then the prompts are like integral parts of you, right? If they ask you, for example, like how do you see this program at Oxford specifically, for example, helping you to achieve whatever you plan to achieve, right? You can use your background or why specifically do you want this program. For example, I was raised in an area of like the capital city of my country with issues with infrastructure, and that has like shaped most of my career, right? I could use that like that story to shape how I answer the question. So I don't think you have to dissociate your personal story. That's part of who you are. So don't be afraid to use your experience as a person. They sometimes just want to figure that out, for example. And then another thing, like I think it's going to answer a question of a couple of other things I've seen in the comments. Um, don't be afraid. Like Adriana mentioned, it's a conversation. Don't be afraid to say that, oh, I am not so strong at, let's say, public speaking, and that's one thing I'm looking forward to get from the course, because everyone is going to come and say, oh, I like this, what they have seen on the website. Don't be afraid to come and say, oh, well, I have worked in this environment and I realize I need better negotiation skills. Like I've done my own depth of work, but I realize I need like more breadth, and I believe this program can give me that breadth. Right. So feel free to use your story to shape how you're going to reply to. Don't be ashamed about it. Right.
Okay, so someone asked in the comment section if are there any virtual research trainee or internships they can apply for right now as an international student. It could be at the University of Oxford or any international institution. I would say that we cannot really speak to this because it depends on the industry you are coming from, your academic background. But LinkedIn is a good resource. You go online, you look at people with the profiles you are aspiring to have, and the people who are currently holding the roles you aspire to have, you look through their profiles, and that could give you an idea of what kind of internships you can take to prepare yourself as you are still a student. With the same questions about people sending questions about how can they make themselves outstanding if they are still in third year of school. So you just go through people's profiles and know how to prepare as you are going along. Let me see if there are any other questions that stand out. Yeah, so I will just give the speakers a chance to give their last minute wrapping up point and tips before we close. And as after each speaker has spoken, if I find any question that stands out, I'll read it out as well. So we'll start with Christiana. It's been a while. So Christiana, any last minute tips and points before we close?
Okay, thank you. So last minute tips I would say is start early. I believe some of you or most of you have started, so start early. If you have a written work or a writing sample that you need to submit, I believe you should already like have your drafts ready. So I will tell people that the moment you start thinking of applying to Oxford, start ruminating on your topic, what you want to research on, like have that at the back of your mind, because that's like the crux of your application. If you don't know what you're going to do, then just leave it. Like so, but when you know what you're going to do, you start thinking about it, and putting down pens, putting your pen to paper, like taking notes every day, so that you not just come a night to the deadline, then start trying to lump things up together or try it, because that won't work. I think you should have it like start early, put all your documents together. I mean, getting across to some referees can be frustrating. So I think it certainly gives you that edge of, okay, dealing with the frustration in good time, chasing them, oh, sir, ma, please, have you submitted? It would be very good if you start on time. Like, I mean, on time would be 2 months ahead. But if you want to do crash course, maybe 1 month, but I would advise that you start early so that you can deal with every challenge that would happen, any system glitch, any issue. So that's very like essential. Then, like I said earlier, please do your research. Don't go around asking people questions on the website, because it gives them that impression that you're not a serious person and they might not want to proceed with even having that chat with you. Maybe you're going to ask someone, maybe, sorry, please, when is the deadline for this program? I think you should know the deadline for your course. There's some basic information that you find on the website. Like, I think the Oxford website is very robust with so much information. There are even like Q&A sessions where you see people that have asked questions and the answers, responses they got. So try as much as possible to do your research, very essential. So you have like a full idea of what you're doing, because if you're doing an application and you don't know some information, I mean, it places you at a disadvantage, because people that do that research have the advantage over you. And then the last thing I would say is that do not apply or take this application process as a process of applying for admission. Take it as a process that you're applying to get into Oxford. You're actually applying to come to Oxford, not just applying to get admitted. You can I know someone that has had like plenty admissions across the globe, but each time the issue is funding. So please try as much as possible to make sure that your application is not just admission centric but funding. I know that admission is a very key thing to getting into Oxford. That's what now kickstarts the conversation around funding. But know that you can get admitted and not get funding. And for most of us in Africa, if you don't get funding, you're just staying back at home. So have that in mind, and try as much as possible to ask questions. Don't go, like I said, don't go and start saying hello without like any bearing. Tell people that this is why you're in their DM, and it doesn't make you a user. It just means that you're trying to get the information that you probably cannot access publicly, and you just need help. We all need help at some point in time. Even those of us here in Oxford need help. So try as much as possible to reach out to people that have gone down this road before you. And yeah, that'll be it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christiana. People want to know when they can hear back about the mentorship program. So I know that the team is working very hard to get the results out to those who applied, and I'm sure they'll get the information soon. You'll be getting the results soon. For the waiver, the application fee waivers, AfOx does not give you a waiver just because you are African. We are giving out waivers as part of the mentorship program. A select few promising candidates from the mentorship program will be given waivers, but it doesn't mean that everyone would get it. For those who automatically qualify for waivers because of the country they are from, they would also get the waivers. But taking time and studying the application portal well and looking up your country's eligibility will give you all that information. So we'll move on to Joyce to give her last words.
All right. I'll just say give yourself grace, okay? Don't tell yourself. You can only know after you have applied, right? apply, click on the submit button. All what we say here is really not going to make any sense to you if you don't end up submitting an application. So really go ahead and submit the application. Believe in yourself. And when you're submitting the application, something that came to my mind right now is like, don't try to be the best. Give your very best, but don't try to like portray your application you're the best. But some people, all they're going to like emphasize us. I was the first in this thing, graded first class, best, valedictorian, all those things. To be honest, everyone we have like there are probably 1,000 other first class people applying like you. There are probably other 1,000 people who have awards. Maybe some of them have even like had the Nobel Peace Prize, right? All of that. Some are Forbes 30 under 30. They are amazing people at Oxford, right? So let them know that they find something that's like really unique about you. Tell your story in a way that no one else besides you is going to be able to say it. Even if it means explaining how you were raised in a village and you never let that background stop you from achieving the things you have. Say it. You have to be unique in the way you sell and pitch yourself, right? No one is going to pitch yourself like you. So give it your very best. Don't try to put your achievements beforehand. What makes you an applicant? What makes you as a person? What are your values? What do you believe in? What do you enjoy? And how does that move you? How does that shape how you work and how you do the things that you do? I wish you all the very best, and I hope to welcome you next year at Wolfson. Wolfson, emphasis on Wolfson. Thank you.
Wow, Wolfson ambassador. Kibble remains the best college anyways, but that's a story for another day. So someone is asking, before I move on to the next final, someone is asking that their transcripts are not yet ready. They'll be ready after the applications, the portal closes. How can they still apply in the meantime? The official title is not in, but can they apply with what the few transcripts they have right now? Who is taking this one?
I would say, so transcripts are not ready. So therefore, the question is, when you look at the academic requirements, how do you establish that you fulfill those academic requirements? For example, if it needs a distinction, first class honors or second class, whatever. So how do you demonstrate that? I think that would be a struggle for you. So it is better, unless you can contact your university and have the university give you a letter confirming that and just indicating that the material, the results officially are not yet out, but those are your scores, so provisional ones. That would really help. And then once with that letter, then you probably can negotiate with the respective departments. What I would say is, understand that on the other side of that submit button is a human being. Therefore, you can communicate and negotiate with them to help them understand your circumstances. You really feel it is the right time and you have the qualifications to apply. But yeah.
Okay. I will take this question and then David gets his final words. So someone is asking, can you apply to 2 separate scholarship programs at a go? Or and yes, that is possible as long as you are eligible for the scholarship. Apply. It's always better to apply to more, get at least one, or get more scholarships and you select the one you want instead of applying to just one and you don't get it at all. So I would hand over to David. David will give us his final words.
Thank you, Andrea. I think for me, I would say you guys, all of you here, you really want to know what you want and you're clear on what that is. That is, you are the best at what you do. And please make the best of what you do count for you in terms of your applications. What do I mean by that? Number one, bring the personality of you, just the same way Joyce has said it. The distinctions and everything, those are all scores. But who is this person that I'm dealing with? Who is Blessing? Who is Christiana? Who is Joyce? Who is Andriana in that application? Bring your personality, because that then wins you at the end of the day. That's number one. For those who are asking about English scores, if you don't have any proof, you've studied in a full an undergraduate program that was fully in English, you've worked for at least 2 years in a corporate organization where language of business was English, you can request for a waiver. In my context, I got a letter from the university, and I also demonstrated that I was working with this company and their language of business is English. And therefore, then that is establishable. Write that letter by yourself and upload it as justification. Chances are you will get it to pass because you can already communicate in English, and even that letter that you're writing is in English. So you can get that over the bar. The last thing that I would want to say, please, please, please put in the work. There are certain questions that actually I was trying to check through the charts. Okay, which courses are there? The courses are already in the website. If you don't put in the work, it will not happen for you. And that will be how you miss opportunities because you're not putting the work that is needed. I would want you to ask me, how can I reposition my essay to make it make sense to get me moved to the next level? But I don't want you to ask me which courses are there in the business school, because the business school has a link and has all the websites. So then the question is, are we really doing what we need to do? Because then you're minusing yourself. And the same thing about you making a decision, whether do I need to do it or not do it? Make the decision and apply, because at the end of the day, you can only win when you're playing the game. You never win unless you play. And if you're minusing yourself and not applying, the question you need to ask yourself is, what is the role of the recruiter or the admissions office then? Because you're doing their job by not admitting yourself at the start. So make your best foot forward and do what you need to do, and all the best in your applications. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And as David said, there are some questions I saw in the comments that I didn't read them out because they just show that the person did not make an effort. And I would want to say that if you've decided to do a grad school program, Christiana explained that you can reach out to people, but even as you reach out to people, the people should see that you've done your homework and you are coming to them with specific questions that you couldn't find answers to on the website, questions that are not very clear after you've done a preliminary investigation. So just put in the work. If you've decided that you want to come to Oxford, you want to go to any other university in the world, put in the work and you get good results. I would hand over to Liso, and Liso will give us his final words.
Yes, I think all the big points have been taken. I just want to wish you all the best in your application and future endeavors.
Okay. Thank you all so much for joining us. I want to thank the speakers for making time to be here with us today. Oxford is a very, very busy place, and to be able to get almost 2 hours of their time, it's remarkable that they made that for us, and I'm really grateful. And I want to thank Sajel for doing the background work, setting up the webinar, waking up really early to be on with us. She has not shown her face, but we want to say shout outs to Sajel. And many thanks to everybody who is whoop, whoop. Many thanks to everyone who is working on the mentorship committee. It's really not easy. Oxford is busy. I joined it last year whilst I was doing my master's, and I was always stressed out, sneaking time during my break time to pass to the mentees with mentors. And I know that it's really not easy. I really want to thank all those who are part of the mentorship committee, as well as the AfriSoc leadership who make this possible, and to AfOx for supporting us, giving us logistic support. Thanks so much, and thank you all for joining us for this webinar. And I look forward to welcoming you to Oxford. Once you become an Oxonian, you are an Oxonian for life, and see you in Oxford. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you and bye.